What's up, writers? I have been promising to do some kind of Scrivener tutorial for the last little while, and I'm finally going to do it. If you hear some weird noises, it's just because I'm chilling on the other side of my bed while my husband watches a movie in the living room to try to keep the sound uh, semi-reasonable. So we're going to keep it really basic. One of the biggest problems I find that people have when they first start using Scrivener is that they're immediately overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things you can do. The different options and preferences and systems and different ways of organizing, and people tend to overcomplicate it to the point where they don't want to use it. And I feel like that is just so horrifying because Scrivener and other apps like it are just so useful in keeping all of your stuff nice and organized. So, we are going to go through my process of starting up a Scrivener file, and I bet it's going to be a lot simpler than you expect. Alright, so let's get started. We're just going to open Scrivener and we are going to start a new file. We're going to use a new project that I've kind of been tinkering with and just make myself a Scrivener file. I'm currently keeping all my notes. I have a Scrivener file for random projects that haven't really built out enough to have their own. But I think this one is actually getting to the point where it's worth having its own thing so I can start organizing and keeping track of details. So we're going to click Fiction and we're going to click Novel. Okay, so I'm one of those people that organizes literally everything. And it all has to be in exactly the right spots, or I get very stressed out about it, as you can see. So, here we go. We're going to call this one, for now, the library, even though I'm sure that name will change a million times before I'm actually happy with it. So you let it do its thing, let it figure itself out. This is a very useful little document to read through if you've never used Scrivener before, but, since we're doing a tutorial, I'm not going to sit here and read it for you. So we're going to just trash that. It has no effect when you output things. It has no effect on anything else. You don't actually need it. It's not the end of the world if you delete it. Same with sample output. It is nice to see, like, oh, this is what it'll end up looking like if I output it as a manuscript. Yay! But you don't actually need it in it. It's just extra clutter. So I move that to trash as well. Now, these are the different folders that are defaulted in for the novel. Each setting, when you choose a new Scrivener file, depending on what default you choose, hold on, we'll go back and look here, script writing or nonfiction, the settings are all very different. So this is just how to actually set up for a novel or a series of stories or, something like that. Don't think that these same rules are going to apply if you're trying to write a screenplay. The way that Scrivener works is very different in that case. And if you guys are interested, let me know, and I can do some other tutorials about different things. But for now, we're going to just stick with novels, because that is what I primarily do. So we have our different folders. Manuscript, which is your manuscript. It's the things that you've written. Characters, this is where all of your character sketches go. So instead of having separate files with characters and all their information and details and pictures and that sort of thing, you just put them in here, which just makes life so much easier because everything is in one place. You don't have to go clicking around, accidentally deleting files, etc., etc. Places, same thing as characters. Front matter gives you different, it shows you the different ways that it'll export when you actually send it off to be compiled. I'm not going to open any of these because they have all of my default information and you guys don't need to know my phone number. Research is a folder that I actually use a lot. And this just is, I use it to keep track of my notes depending on what it is. So in this particular case, we are going to have some different types of magic, which I like to keep notes on because most of my worlds have slightly different magic systems. I'm sure any other fantasy people out there understand the joys of keeping track of a specific type of magic and exactly what you do and don't do within your system. It is important to remain consistent, and that's what this research folder is for, just to keep yourself consistent. Other things like, let's say, oops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. If I had a town it would go in places. But why are you doing this to me? There we go. But let's say, local government might be a useful thing for me to have. Or in this particular case, other universes and their particular rules and systems. All of that is going to go within my research, just so that I can keep track of it and I don't have to go bouncing around. Now, template sheets. These are both the most complicated and the simplest things in the Scrivener package, but they are so useful, and people just overthink them. They're not as complicated as people make them out to be. Template sheets are literally that. They are templates. You do not click on this character sketch and start filling it out with your character information. So let's just do this. Let's say Anna. Now, if I go up here to characters, and I want to add a character sketch to my characters folder, I'm just going to click add, and it automatically adds a character sketch. But because I edited the template, it's going to give me one that says Anna, and I don't want to have to change that every single time. That's just annoying. So we're going to go back down to the character sketch template, get rid of this, and now when we go up here and add, it's generic again. So this is really important to understand. If you're adding new character sheets and they're full of information and you have to delete it all every single time, you've edited your character sketch template. Just go blank it out again, and then you'll have a nice blank sheet that will add a character every single time you want to. It's very, very handy. The other thing is that I've had people complain to me that these are really like boring character sketch pages. They're not detailed enough. They're not great. Well, then change it. Make it whatever you want. So let's say we're going to go over to one of my more completed projects. You'll see this is a bit of a gong show of a Scrivener. I have all sorts of stuff. That is because this is a trilogy, and the sheer amount of notes that I need to keep to continue being consistent within my world is madness, just madness. So if I go to my character sketch template here, you can see it's a lot more detailed, and we're just going to copy and go back down over here, fill it in, ta-da, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Now when I go up here and I add, it's going to give me that character template. It's fantastic. You can do whatever you want. I write a lot of fantasy stuff, so typically my character sketches require that sort of thing. I need to know what their race is. Are they an elf? Are they a human? Are they a dwarf? Are they a Yonlan? Are they some other random thing that I've made up? What's their dominant hand? That is something I forget about a lot of my secondary characters, is what hand they write or fight with. And that can be really, it's the small details that catch a reader out and bring them out of the story, which is the last thing you want to happen. So you can do that with the settings sketch too. You can, adjust this template sheet and make it however you want. So personally, I just don't like the way that this is laid out. I haven't really, sorry about that. I haven't actually changed a whole heck of a lot in my Tyrant one. I believe it's pretty much the same sketch. It's just a little more, organized towards, towards my aesthetic. So we just go over here, bloop, bloop, done. Clean, easy, and now you don't have to worry about it. If you want a character, you just toss it in there. Every time you make a new character, pop it in there, fill out your character sketch, and you'll always have this information right at your fingertips when you're writing. It's the handiest thing. All right, so we've got that all sorted out. We've got templates. We've got everything basically figured out here. Now we're going to talk about the UI. There are a couple different ways to use Scrivener, and a couple different setups that I use depending on what I'm doing at the time. So let's say I'm starting my new project. In this particular case, the world is it's gonna be a series of short stories, all revolving around a librarian. So let's go to characters, go to that first character sketch, and import Elizabeth Downing. There we go. And then we would just continue going down. Because you guys will eventually be reading this, hopefully, if you enjoy my stuff. I'm not going to continue on with all of this sort of stuff because, I want you to have to learn it as you read. But normally I would continue down, fill this all in, get it all sorted out, and then I have my character sheet. After that, what I typically do is either I draw, you can see I tend to draw a lot of my own characters in one way or another. And I would add her image in here, which you just drag a file and drop it. If this is not an image file and you want it to be, if it's like this, all you gotta do is click that little button there. And that just makes life lovely and easy, and you have a nice image sitting right beside your character sheet that you can look at any time. This is the inspector. It is very useful, especially if you want to keep notes that you can see when you are in this kind of view. You have these little cards. Anything that's typed into here will also show up in your inspector because that's where it's hiding. So this card is just the same card that shows up in the pinboard view. So that is my character sheet. Great, I've done that. Now I'm going to start with one of my setting sketches. So we go in here, and we're just going to say the library. And it is the main location. Related characters. We have Elizabeth Downing. Another thing that is great about it is you can do this. Scrivener link, characters, Elizabeth Downing. So now, whenever I click here, it is going to bring up Elizabeth Downing. You can do that from anywhere. So if I, wrote about works at the library, we can now click there, Scrivener link, the library. And sometimes it'll actually suggest it if it thinks it knows what you're trying to do. So that is a very useful thing for speeding around your Scrivener if you need that sort of thing. Especially like in the Tyrant folder where I have ridiculous amounts of stuff and things and files, and I typically have all of it open, so getting from one to the other can be very frustrating. So that's, again, fill this all in, get it all set up. And I do that for all of my major characters that I've got in my head. This doesn't have to be exhaustive, but I find it's nice just to have it written down so you've got it and you don't have to stop in the middle of, your good flow while you're getting your draft down and fill this sort of stuff out. You can just glance back at it. Oh, yeah, she's left-handed or she's right-handed or she's got green eyes or whatever, and pop it into your manuscript without having to really distract yourself. The other thing that I tend to do is a decent outline for my stories. So we're going to a new folder to research. This is going to be, again, like I said, a series of short stories. So it's going to be multiple outlines. Normally I would just have it in a text file, but, when you have multiple ones. So this is going to be story 1. And this, again, just so that we are all on the same page, this is going to be story 1. And, this can be story 2. So, story 1, just for an example, we are going to have Liz goes to work. Liz gets coffee. Liz stacks some books. Let's say Beth comes in and takes Beauty and the Beast home. Beth saves the Beast. Liz congratulates her. I don't know how to spell congratulate. I do that every single time. It's one of those words for me. All right, so this is my outline. Isn't it fantastic? Obviously, I would go more into detail, but you don't get to know that information. So I normally have this already done before I'll start my writing. So now I'm over here. I actually want to start but I can't remember what I was going to do first. What was that first thing on my outline? I don't know. So like 90% of the time when I'm setting up my Scrivener to actually write, not to develop and not to fill out pages, but to actually write things, I change my view. So when you open view, again, this is so overwhelming. There is just so much stuff in here. And project, there's so much stuff in here that you don't need it to utilize Scrivener. That isn't to say that every single thing in here isn't useful, because it all is. But to just start out and start getting your head wrapped around it and just to use it, you don't need to set your metadata. You don't need to set your autocomplete list. You don't need to be adding media files and project statistics. It's just not something you have to do right off the bat. The project statistics, on a note, is pretty cool. It tells you all their things. If you want your words and your characters and your pages, and I don't know. I like it personally. So that is a useful thing. But it's not something you need to know. So far, I'm basically 100% set up for how I do all of my writing. I don't use 90% of this stuff on a day-to-day basis. I will use a lot of it when I'm starting to export or send it to beta readers, but that's it. So don't stress about all of the different options and having to learn them all. Start with the basics, get your story going, and then as you think you need things or as you have time, go Google what are metadata settings in Scrivener. And again, if there's something in here that you guys would like me to do a quick tutorial on, I'm happy to do so. Just let me know. All right, so what I actually do in here though is I go to Layout, Split Vertically. This gives me 2 different screens, which I find awesome. I make this one really small. I click on this one so that I'm inside of it, and then I click on my outline. So now I have my outline on one side and my scene on the other, which means that I can start writing and see my thing. So I can just keep going and I have all that information beside me. Another thing that could be useful is, to have your character sheet right beside you. Whatever you find yourself needing to go back and look at the most often. So personally for me, it's my outlines. So as I'm writing, the problem with having this split screen is that a lot of the time, I'll click on here to copy and paste something, and then I'll go click to go back to my scene, and I've clicked out of here. I don't want that to change. I want this one to stay on my outline. I want this one to change. And if you're selected on one or the other, that's the one that's going to switch. But there's a way to get around this. If we go here and we right click on, right click, no. Oh, sorry, not right click, just normal click. On this one, you can lock this in place. So now, if I'm on here and I go clicking all over here, it doesn't change. It is locked there until you go and you unlock it. And then you can change it. So let's say I've finished story 1, I'm going on to story 2, and I want this to now be, outline 2. I would unlock it, switch it to outline 2, and then lock it back in place. So this is my typical setup for when I'm actually writing. That's all there is to it. The only other thing that I would add to that is the compose screen, which basically just gets rid of everything. You don't have all that extra stuff distracting you. You don't have all the extra buttons just kind of getting in your way. But again, I'm one of those people that I really like to be able to look at my outline as I write and be able to go and take a peek at this sort of stuff. So I tend actually not to use the compose stuff too much, except when I have like a really big long scene that I just need to focus and get out. So this is how I set up my Scrivener. Everybody's different, and you are going to go and talk to other writers, and their setup is going to be completely different than mine. So play with it. Don't be afraid of screwing something up. Don't experiment with something where you've already written 25,000 words. Open up a new Scrivener and start again, where you're not going to accidentally delete a whole bunch of stuff. But, go play with it. Clicking on some buttons is not going to break your computer. Trying out new things and different buttons is not going to screw anything up. You just have to be brave and just really make Scrivener work for you. Don't feel like you have to work to use Scrivener. So I hope that this was really useful. If you guys would like me to do more stuff like this, all you got to do is say so. I'm definitely happy to do it. So here you go. It's been great talking to you, storytellers, and I will see you guys tomorrow in my Friday vlog. See you later.